Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Ifeni, the great Malabite, who I believe voted on Saturday.
Good morning, Ruben. I was here. I was here to work on Saturday, so I couldn't vote. You know where I have to vote.
I know. You were on essential duty.
Correct. Good morning, Rufai.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, your fans.
Elections.
Yes, your fans in Warri asking after you, Rufai. They wanted to see Rufai. Why did you not bring Rufai? Now, yes, if we just start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record, I will start with the story above the masthead because we've been talking results all day. We'll get to results. Atiku, Amaechi's revelation confirms INEC in ruling party candidates' pocket, alleges APC, electoral body, have mortgaged Nigeria's democracy. Yes, the interview given by Rotimi Amaechi, former Minister of Transportation, the immediate past Minister of Transportation, yes, alleging that, of course, it was the Tinubu wing of the APC that appointed, that recommended Mahmoud Yakubu for the to reappoint him as INEC chair, and as such, I'm alleging that they are hand in gloves, INEC and the APC. Of course, he was saying that INEC, that's Amaechi now, that his party, the APC in Rivers State, did not contest against PDP, but against the police, the INEC, and other institutions. And he went further to say that Mahmoud Yakub worked under Nyesom Wike when he was Minister of State for Education as Executive Secretary of the TED Fund. Now, Atiku Abubakar, the candidate of the PDP in the presidential election, has now keyed into that allegation as if the worst fears of the PDP is now being confirmed by that revelation from Rotimi Amaechi. Of course, Frank Shoaibu, speaking on behalf of his principal, Atiku Abubakar, even went further to allege that the AIG posted to Rivers State to supervise the election, AIG Kayode Egbetokun, is a known ally of Tinubu who also served as Bola Ahmed Tinubu's chief security officer while he was governor of Lagos State. Yes, so much allegation here, but these are weighty allegations and which also have not helped the situation of INEC in the wake of the shoddy handling of the presidential election and, of course, the election that followed. But we not just look at the lead story. APC wins big as Guber poll results come in across Nigeria. Sanwo-Olu, Makinde, Yahaya, Abiodun, Abdulrasaq, others secure re-election. Ruling party retains Katsina. Jigawa, Yobe reclaims Sokoto, comfortable in Ebonyi orders. Opposition party clears Akwa Ibom, leads in Delta, Taraba, Bauchi, Abia. Tension in Adamawa as Fintiri, Benani in tough, tight race. Kebbi 2, Soludo maintains dominance in Anambra despite LP's intimidation. Yes, the results are pouring in. And of course, almost 9 governors have retained their seats. Dakpo Abiodun, the governor of Ogun State, it was a tight race, but he pulled it through. Maybe his performance has just given him the edge. And as they say in his camp, one good term deserves another. And so much for Dakpo Abiodun opportunity to continue his good work. Of course, we, the people of Ogun State, on this desk. Ruben Rufai, I know you have one or two things to say about the factors that gave the edge to Dakwa Abiodun in that very tight race. Now, we just look at other newspapers, how they are reporting this story as we continue. Now, the Guardian newspaper, INEC declares Makinde, Eno, Abiodun, Abdul Razak winners. Yes. Akwa Ibom, another very interesting state. Was that, is it Happy Hour is here? Yes. The Happy Hour is here in Akwa Ibom. Every Friday, take a trip to Akwa Ibom. Happy Hour. And that means you'll be buying beer at subsidized rate. I don't know how that is a priority, but...
Doctor added pepper soup and jollof. Let's not forget that.
To complete it's for bars and restaurants.
Yes. So I don't know how that is a priority, but I'm sure after May 29th, many people will troop out on the first Friday of after May 29 to have pepper soup, jollof rice, and
afan soup,
and subsidized. So good times are here in Akwa Ibom. Oh. If this is the real stomach infrastructure, if they are telling me, but I know there are more important. No, there are more important things to do in Akwa Ibom. That is just an aside.
Yaket. So taking yampion.
Lager. So I don't know why that became a sing song. Perhaps you never can tell. That must have contributed some votes to this victory. The pepper souping and the jollofing that will follow after Eno Umo becomes the governor of Akwa Ibom State. But clearly, Udom Emmanuel, his peak. That was his peak. And of course, the nearest challenger, the YPP candidate, who was, of course, a member of the PDP, and he went to Senate when Udom picked the ticket of, he was encouraged to go to the Senate when Udom picked the ticket of PDP back in the day. And he thought this time around, Udom should have just endorsed him, but that was not the case. Udom decided to endorse the pastor Eno Umo, who had to kneel down to get that endorsement. Remember that famous photograph of the Eno Umo kneeling down before Governor Udom Emmanuel. But today, he has won the election clearly. Udom Emmanuel showing that, well, he's the master on ground in Akwa Ibom State. It's not easy to enthrone your choice pick as your successor. Udom Emmanuel has done it. Eno Umo is the governor-elect of Akwa Ibom State. Now, the Punch newspaper, Sanwo-Olu, Makinde, Abiodun, Abdul Razak, Buni, others win. But the story just beside the masthead. Labour candidate stops Nnamani's Senate return. Yes. Chimaroke Nnamani, a.k.a. Ebano. Yes. He was in the Senate. He's a member of the Senate, right now the 9th Senate, but he's not returning because in that Enugu East election, he was trounced by Kelvin Chukwu. Yes, Kelvin Chukwu pulled 69,136 votes to Nnamani's 48,701 votes. Of course, Enugu East is that senatorial district where the candidate of Labour, Oyibo Chukwu, was assassinated 72 hours before the February 25 presidential and National Assembly election. INEC had to reschedule to allow Labour Party to renominate another candidate. And of course, the Labour candidate won. Kelvin Chukwu won that election in Enugu East. So Chimaroke will not go back. But it's a lesson because Chimaroke himself, though a member of the PDP, came out publicly to announce that he's working for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC in the ahead of the presidential election. Now the people have spoken in that locality, and his emergence as senator is also an interesting story because he told himself that after his tenure as governor, he was in the political wilderness until the current Enugu governor had to pull him out of the wilderness. These are his own terms, and ask him to go and contest and go back to the Senate, at least to have a political address. But how he paid his party was to campaign for the presidential candidate of another party ahead of the presidential election. And the people have spoken, he is not going back. Perhaps a lesson for political politicians that you don't jump on you use one ticket to go to the Senate and you undermine that ticket as it were. Now, the Nation newspaper, if we look at the Nation newspaper quickly, yes, we put up the Nation newspaper there. Let's have the Nation newspaper. Yes. Yes, that's the Nation newspaper. Yes, Sanwo-Olu, Abdul Razak, Makinde, Abiodun, re-elected. Yes. And, yes, just a minute. Yes. Of course, 9 states to get governor-elect today is the story above the masthead of the Nation newspaper. Yes, Sanwo-Olu talking about the governor of Lagos State who has been re-elected. And of course, he had to sweat for that, for the votes, because in the wake of the presidential election, he was standing on shaky ground. He went round, came down to the level of the people from his high horse, as it were, and top-knuckling with everybody that cared to come his way. And of course, he has been rewarded with a second term. Of course, the election in Lagos, fraught with violence, voter intimidation, and of course, other anomalies. Of course, we saw, what do you call that, sacrifice at polling units to scare voters away. But of course, Lagosians decided to continue to cast their vote. But the fact that many people had to stay away for fear of being attacked by persons who had promised to do so, and they carried out their threats on election day, is a very sad story that despite the intelligence, in fact, you don't even need any special intelligence. We know the flashpoints in Lagos, but the police, the security agencies, no matter how they claim to have tried, but I'm not sure I will give them pass mark on how they handled the election in Lagos, that thugs were still able to go around freely to harass people in what was considered as the non-APC stronghold. It's a sad story. Of course, the governorship candidate of Labour, Rose Vivo, has said he will challenge the election results that came out of Lagos. It is within his rights to do so. It is part of the democratic process, and we'll see how it pans out. But for now, Governor Sanwo-Olu is celebrating. Now, if we look at the Abuja Inquirer newspaper, the weekly newspaper of Abuja City, yes, the lead story, state polls, upsets, intrigues, close calls, no definite. But the story above the masthead, FCT polls, sad, my record of service didn't count. Aduda, Senator Philip Aduda, who are a 4th-time senator. He's been the senator representing the, Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, in the National Assembly. But he was defeated by Ireti Kingibe of the Labour Party. But he's saying that performance was not taken into consideration, that the people voted on emotions, based on emotions, whatever that means. He has been defeated, and a woman of substance, a woman of intellect, Ireti Kingibe, will have the opportunity to showcase what she can do for her people, the people of Abuja, and women generally at the National Assembly. Now, Reuben Rufai and the gorgeous Mrs. Ayo Mairo Esse.
Okay, I mean, so a lot has to be said about the elections. At first, over 28 states were fighting for. When you look at it, most of the incumbents could win back their states. They narrowly, in some cases, did win. A case of Ogun was really neck and neck. And
that was close.
That was so close. I like Dr. Bati did say NMPP has said they're going to go to court, but I'm also hearing that Adebutu says he's going to challenge it too in court. We're going to have a lot of court cases, which was not supposed to be the intention of this BVAS process. There was widespread violence. But I think the most important thing we should ask ourselves is, how did these people win? Let's come to a place like Lagos. What happened in Lagos was totally unacceptable. A lot of ethnic and tribal chaos. People went out and suppressed votes. I mean, look at what happened in VGC. People have been voting in a particular area, and then all of a sudden INEC says, come and vote on the expressway.
That would have been a recipe for chaos.
That was a recipe for chaos, where you know that there are boys, area boys and thugs around that could easily come scuttle the process like we see in other parts. And that case had to take a lot of intervention before they were allowed to vote the second day. And also the second day, look at the skirmish as regards time of ending voting and counting. People, guns were pointed at them. They had to vote at gunpoint. Somebody told me the story of a 60-year-old man. That gun was pointed at and told to vote a certain political party.
Where were the security?
Where were the security authorities? In some cases, kudos to them, they stood up tall. Look at the case of Ikota. But in some other cases, they looked away while these thugs had a free reign. So are you telling me that thugs will have a free reign in a state, we can't nip them in the bud? So it shows a lot of and that's why I asked the question, what did we win? Did we win the chaos, or we won the confidence of the people? Did we win the trust, or we won the distrust of the people? A lot of things that happened were unacceptable. It was a demonstration of grace. What is grace? Madness. What is madness? Weary. It was a voracious attitude that was exhibited. That's not democracy. Democracy is supposed to be a festival of ideas and choice.
Well, that's the Yoruba word for grace.
Yes. Democracy is supposed to be a festival for ideas. But on the flip side, you will see people like Sheyi Makinde. That's one with, yes, there were cases of violence who reported in Oyo, but not as much as the level of violence in Lagos. There were cases of violence reported in Enugu, but not as much as the level of violence. See other areas, largely peaceful. But you see these things the politicians do, it is when it favors each other, they do it. If it doesn't favor to them, they don't talk. But when it favors them in the other part, they continue. So I think what behoves on us now, what do we do from here? How will places like Lagos be able to heal? Because either way, we need to find healing to be able to rebuild our society. At what rate are we going to look at each other? Because after the elections, we still have to go to churches and mosques together. But in all, yes, BVAS worked this time around. Electoral officers came on time, which is a kudos to them, but they were massively complicit. There was massive complicity. There was a video that was even making the round that when they were counting the vote of a political party, the INEC official, NYC, was dancing with them.
BVAS working, I think it's also perspective, because whilst yes, it captured the electorate, but people said that they were not transmitting results as well. So there were issues around that. So despite that, and there was a video that also made the rounds where an INEC official was boldly saying, come and vote, but we are not going to transmit results. So they already knew.
Yes.
With the VGC issue...
Was that an instruction from the INEC State Secretariat?
Well, she didn't clarify that, but that's what people are suspecting, because can they carry out orders by themselves? And then how come it seemed to be the same across different polling units? So obviously it seems like he infers that they must have received orders from above. With the VGC issue, some people, the INEC staff, in their defense, said that the last time they came on the 25th of February to conduct elections in VGC, they were held hostage. So they were not allowed to go home till the early hours of the morning. And so in protecting their staff, they said they should not they should not set up inside VGC. They
did not conclude their elections,
yes.
And they wanted to leave. So you cannot leave.
So
conclude the elections
before you leave. So it
wasn't not as if they were held hostage.
Exactly.
This was trying to give a dog a bad name.
The reports that were held and trying to balance, because we also had to present their own what their excuse was. However, videos emerged the night before of how the VGC residents had particularly set up ready for INEC to come. So in terms of organization, and traditionally, the polling units in VGC have been known to be conducted quite well, because you have intellectuals, you have elites who live there, and people who are used to organizing things properly.
We saw it yesterday. We saw the pictures,
yes, and we saw Arise correspondents were on ground. Now, going back to a statement, to what I want to touch on, in terms of perhaps one of the most infamous statements of the weekend, made by former Minister of Transport, Amaechi, saying that that the election in River State, at least, wasn't against PDP, but was against INEC and the police. Then he talks about the fact that the INEC chairman, Professor Yakub Mahmoud, was nominated by an APC, was renominated by an APC, someone who is
Tinubu
wing of APC. Now the INEC chairman was reappointed in 2020. So he's had 3 years to come out to raise this alarm. Say he wasn't ready for that yet. February 25, he had an opportunity to raise the alarm. Unfortunately, it was when things were not, because he's backing the APC candidate in River State. Then he comes out to say that, oh, this is what it is. I do think that he needs to come to clarify his statement further, even though he said his life might be at risk. But he needs to come out to clarify a bit further, because of course he didn't mention names. And a few other things, in terms of allegations he's made against not just the state governor, but also against INEC chair as well. So this election across board, unfortunately, we've talked about on this show a number of times, and Dr. Batu, you mentioned it earlier today, that there were lessons that ought to have been learned. And we're hopeful, let me use that word, that would be learned ahead of Saturday's elections. But the result of what we saw on Saturday seemed like things got worse rather than lessons being learned to improve the process. And that's quite unfortunate.
Okay, number one, with all these reports of voter apathy, voter suppression, voter intimidation, BVAS didn't quite work in many places. In fact, in many states, BVAS was stolen. People made away with BVAS. So there was failure even at the level of security. Yeah. So what does this say about the legacy of credible elections that President Buhari repeatedly talked about? Because when all of this is over, the February 25 election, the March 18 election, people will ask the question. The president promised, he gave materials, yes, he approved money to be spent, billions of taxpayers' money, but what is it that Nigerians can hold on to? That's one major question. Yes, the integrity of INEC is part of the story. And, Rotimi Amaechi, you may say, well, he's been part of this government and all that, but he has expressed his concern. And he raised issues about Mahmoud Yakubu's affiliation with certain major political figures, the president-elect and also the governor of River State. And he's not alone in that regard. The presidential candidate of the PDP, Akwa Ibom, has also issued a statement questioning the integrity of Professor Yakubu Mahmoud. Well, but it's not just about him. It's about the behavior of INEC as an institution. Because there have also been videos showing INEC officials helping to thumbprint ballot papers, caught with ballot papers, compromising the process using their official cover. Number 3, you talked about Lagos State. Well, the governor of Lagos State has said he's ready to work with the Labour Party and also the PDP and other, challengers in that election. But would they be ready to work with him? The Labour Party candidate, Gbadebo Roosevelt, has said he does not accept the outcome of the election because he considers it a sham. The Afenifere in Lagos State, both the chairman and the Afenifere leader, they have issued a statement to say that, look, election should be rescheduled in some other parts of Lagos, not just in the 10 polling units in VGC and Ikate, because there are other parts of Lagos where issues have been raised. Yes. Number 3, what are the lessons? We've not learned any lessons. Maybe the lessons that we're talking about, will be lessons for the future about technology, about the deployment of INEC, about the need to strengthen INEC as an institution. Number 5, there's going to be a gale of litigations arising from this election. And it's not just in Lagos that people have been talking about going to court. And that's why it's interesting that the article I referred to earlier by Chidion Dinkalo, in which he was saying that, look, the next round of voting will now be in the courts. But what would this say about the future? One of the points made by Gbadebo Roosevelt is that we have now created a situation in Nigeria whereby in the next elections, nobody is going to talk about issues. Everybody is going to prepare to win by any means possible. So don't ask about manifesto, don't ask about issues. On election, they just bring out your own thoughts. But what would that say about the future of Nigeria? Anyway, thank you, Emmanuel Efeni.